Welcome to Barbados, one of Mother Nature's most bounteous gifts to humankind and to planet Earth. Our main reason for being here today is to visit the Barbados Synagogue and its adjacent, fascinating and historical cemetery. But let's first share a few interesting and enlightening tidbits about this island paradise, this wonderful slice of the good life in the Caribbean. About 280,000 people happily call Barbados their home. It has to be a fine place to live, as the island's citizens have a life expectancy in the range of almost 74 years. Barbados is divided into 11 parishes or districts, much like counties or provinces in other nations. Interestingly, the island was uninhabited when first settled by the British in 1627. In the early years, Barbados was recognized mainly for its voluminous sugar production. Exporting sugar, molasses, and rum fueled the island's economy until the late 20th century. Then, in the not-too-distant 1990s, tourism and manufacturing became the nation's major sources of revenue. Barbados was, for the better part of its history, directly linked to the United Kingdom. The link between the two nations has never been totally severed. Gradually, social and political reforms were launched and the island nation obtained total independence in 1966. Barbados is noted for its high literacy rate as well as its pleasant, peaceful, and true tropical ambience. As mentioned earlier, we're going to take a very close look at the Barbados Jewish community, including its house of worship and its cemetery. Although the Jewish presence in Barbados has never been large in numbers, those who came here played a vital role in the growth and development of the island. Just a year after the British launched their settlement of Barbados in 1627, displaced Spanish and Portuguese Jews began arriving from places like Brazil, Cayenne, England, and even Germany. Then in 1654, Bridgetown, which is the capital of Barbados, was selected as the site for the island's first synagogue. Now let's advance our historical clock to the year of 1931. This was the year that Moses Altman left his native Poland and settled on the island of Barbados. Much to Moses Altman's surprise, the previously viable and thriving Jewish community in Bridgetown had dispersed and departed for places like Great Britain and the United States. It is thought that perhaps a series of damaging hurricanes played no small role in the group's breakup and the subsequent mass exodus. Then, too, many married into local families, and their adherence to the Jewish faith was no longer of major importance. With assimilation, they had broken the Judaic chain that has been sustained for millennia. Getting back to the Barbados Synagogue, we learned that its survival and rebirth could be linked to a gentleman named Edmund Baeza. In 1925, Baeza distinguished himself as the last remaining Jew on the island. Thus, he took it upon himself to sell the synagogue for about 500 British pounds. Did he keep all that money? Nope, he didn't. Quite predictably, he donated these funds to the Bevis Mark Synagogue, which is located in London, England. Why predictably? Well, because the two synagogues had long established an amicable links. They worked well together. Now, it turns out that the Bevis Mark Synagogue was a Sephardic organization. That would mean that its heritage and religious practices were an outgrowth of Spanish Jewish-based customs, traditions, and rituals. Since the Barbados synagogue's earliest activists were from Brazil, a strong link between the Barbadian Jewish community and its counterpart in London had developed. A gentleman named Henry Graham Yearwood became the proud new owner of what once was the only synagogue on Barbados. Although Yearwood variously used the building as a law library, a warehouse, and turf club, among other incarnations, the adjacent cemetery remained much as it appears in contemporary times. Speaking about the cemetery, it is believed to be the oldest Jewish graveyard in the Western Hemisphere. Several tombstone inscriptions are dated in the 1600s. Additionally, some famous people are reposed here, including Samuel Hart, son of America's well-known Moses Hart. Moses Nehemiah, the first Jew to live in the state of Virginia, died in Barbados in 1672, and he is buried in this ancient historic cemetery. It is understandable for one to be curious about the stones and pebbles one sees at many grave sites. There are several explanations about this ancient ritual and tradition. Rabbi Andrew Strauss offers the following explanation. The rabbi says that ritual is a way of expressing our emotions and spiritual needs. We need physical acts to express these things for us, to make them concrete. Placing a stone on a grave does just that. It works in several ways. It is a sign to others who come to the grave when I am not there that they and I are not the only ones who remember. The stones I see on the grave when I come are a reminder to me that others have come to visit the grave. My loved one is remembered by many others, and his or her life continues to have an impact on others, even if I do not see them. When I pick up the stone, it sends a message to me. I can still feel my loved one. I can still touch and be touched by him or by her. I can still feel the impact that has been made on my life. Their life, their love, their teachings, their values and morals still make an impression on me. When I put the stone down, it is a reminder to me that I can no longer take this person with me physically. I can only take him or her with me in my heart and my mind, and the actions I do because he or she taught me to do them. Their values, their morals, their ideals live on and continue to impress me, just as the stone has made an impression on my hands, so too their life has made an impression on me that continues. We return now to our historical narration concerning the history of the Barbados synagogue. There was a gentleman named E.M. Shilstone. He was known as a local historian, and he advised Edmund Baeza that the synagogue shouldn't be sold. Rather, he said it should be a perpetual tribute to Barbados' early settlers, in particular the De Mercado family. It was these Jewish immigrants who enabled Barbados to develop its extensive sugar refining industry. But, alas, Shilstone couldn't match or surpass the 500-pound offer for the structure, and it was sold to the English synagogue instead. To his credit, losing low bidder Shilstone carefully photographed the interior features of the synagogue and proceeded to do the same in the adjacent cemetery. These photographs were to become invaluable in later years. Included in his collection of photos was the inscription from the tomb of Benjamin Messiah. Messiah must have been an icon of his congregation because, says the monument, and I quote, "a reader of the Jews' synagogue for many years without a fee or reward, and performed the office of circumciser with great applause and dexterity." In the 1930s, opportunity beckoned and some 40 Jewish families settled in Barbados, including Moses Altman and his son Henry. Although they built a small synagogue named She'ar Tzedek, they continued to use the cemetery that was adjacent to the original structure. Things remained static until the late 1970s when the government took possession of the original building and planned to level it to make room for the expansion of the nearby Supreme Court building. The contemplated destruction was a major concern to Henry Altman, especially so because a 10-foot strip of the cemetery was to be destroyed, and this would require moving the remains of his ancestors and brethren elsewhere. Altman's son, Paul, managed to locate the photographs that Shilstone had taken years before and took them to Prime Minister Tom Adams with a plea to spare this historical property. Adams told Altman that if he could find the money to fund the restoration, the building would be given back to the Jewish community. Raising $1 million for this project turned out to be quite a formidable task. So, with limited funds, one worker was retained to launch what was to be a Herculean project. Word of the undertaking quickly spread, and funds poured in from the Commonwealth Council in Britain and the American Jewish Congress, as well as from individual donors. Paul Altman became a mover and a shaker, generating attention-commanding publicity in distant and respected publications around the globe. A giant step forward was the discovery of the University of Florida's Preservation in the Caribbean program. The combined efforts of a graduate architecture student and a local Barbados firm resulted in unanticipated and noteworthy strides for the restoration project. A major obstacle turned out to be the lack of original furniture to complete the synagogue's interior. Fortunately, the Barbados Museum had acquired a few of the original furnishings, and through diligent effort, other items were located on the island and elsewhere. A distant museum had acquired the original chandeliers, but wouldn't give them back. So, artisans were commissioned to replicate the originals to the best of their ability. Very fortunately, Altman was able to locate the sanctuary's original 10 Commandments. They were found hanging over the swimming pool in the former residence of an ex-governor general of Barbados. With skill, with dedication, and stubbornness, Paul Altman recovered the 10 Commandments, and they are no longer adorning the mansion's swimming pool. The Barbados Synagogue retains its Sephardic character with reproductions of the original bima and reader's table. Local artisan Andy Tempro used his incredible skills to create these remarkable likenesses of the originals. Refusing to scale down or compromise, Altman insisted that the replacement moldings not be cheapened by using fiberglass. The originals were crafted from sturdy mahogany, and so are the new ones. Though the building appears to be in prime condition, it's quite obvious that the cemetery cries out for extensive restoration, and this will be done. There are also plans for a Jewish museum to be built in a nearby schoolhouse. Prior to the restoration, It was known that the building's floor tiles were originals. However, they were so covered with accumulated grime that they were unrecognizable. Then, too, there was a fake ceiling that had been constructed under the original ceiling. Regarding the cemetery, Evan Milner, who has a degree in stonework and is an archaeology hobbyist, has been commissioned to spend 3 months of each year on his hands and knees piecing the puzzle back together again. A local artisan, Charles Leslie, under the direction of the expert, has devoted years of his life to reclaiming the cemetery. With laudable attention to accuracy and detail, the restoration team is even chiseling lost letters that have, for whatever reason, disappeared from the tombstones. Paul Altman, along with many others, recognizes that the Barbados synagogue property is a precious and priceless one-of-a-kind gem. It represents history that spans hundreds of years. And by its very survival and presence, it symbolizes the endurance and perpetuity of the people of Israel.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binoot deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleni, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'ma'agle tzedek lema'an shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha heima yenachamuni. Ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorarai, dishanta vashemen roshi, kosi revaya, ach tov vachesed yirdefuni, kol yemei chayai, v'shavti bevet Adonai lo orech yamim.